Story 1. Erdogan threatens this whenever his poll numbers drop to shore up support from the Turkish right. He is not likely to take action that could risk his power or that of the country. He has made similar threats multiple times before. Story 2. The United States Diplomatic Corps will receive a significant amount of overtime pay. There will not be a war. Turkey and Israel both have lists of desired United States goods. Story 3. Turkey and the Turkish people are not interested in going to war with Israel. Most are upset about the situation, but none of us is willing to fight in a conflict that does not really involve us. President Erdogan is trying to rally his own base as he is losing support due to the struggling economy. His statements most likely further increased the price of the euro and dollar, making things worse for the average Turk. Things have been going his way lately, so he must keep his base preoccupied. This is his classic political maneuver when he finds himself in a difficult position, which has been happening frequently since the pandemic. Story 4. Nothing will happen. It is just posturing. When a government is weak, war is a great way to divert people's attention. Consider Venezuela's declaration of war against Guyana. I am still waiting. Story 5. America and the European Union will pay him another $200 million to silence him. This is literally his strategy. Every few years he decides he wants more money in his Swiss bank account, so he threatens to do something outrageous. Then the West quickly concedes and pays him off because Turkey is just too strategically important for our North Atlantic Treaty Organization bases. He has made many outrageous claims, such as allowing every migrant free passage to Europe, invading Syria, taking over American bases and their nuclear weapons in Turkey, and opposing Sweden and Finland joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. He will continue this as long as our timid leaders keep bribing him. If we weren't constantly at odds with Russia, the West wouldn't care at all about Turkey. Story 6. Erdogan and his associates are all talk and no action. They threaten war and throw insults on social media. However, behind closed doors, they send weapons to Israel. Turkey is not a threat to any developed nation. They only maintain this facade for their voter base. In terms of foreign relations, Turkey is essentially disregarded by others and will comply with anyone's demands if the deal is attractive enough. Story 7. From Turkey, there is little chance of happening. Erdogan is just being Erdogan. However, it is entertaining to see Americans discuss the Middle East, most of whom know next to nothing about it. I believe that Turkey and Israel's cooperation is the only hope for the Middle East, and our interests align. I hope the relationship between the two countries will be as good as it was in the past once the government changes. Story 8. There is something you may not know about his deceit. His aristocratic friends were trading with Israel 2 months after it was sanctioned. Some of those ships contained chemicals sold to Israel. He was fully aware of this and profiting from the war while claiming to defend Palestine. Israel is his business partner. Do you think he would risk a conflict with such an ally? It is all an act. He can say whatever he wants, but his actions are very different from his words. I am sure that even now he is allowing trade with Israel in secret because he does not want his friends to lose billions of dollars in corrupt money, regardless of the humanitarian crisis. Story 9. Hello, I am from Turkey. There will be no war. Remember that Turkey is a democracy, and politicians try to manipulate people. Turkey is in a significant economic crisis, and the government is making absurd statements to avoid losing its voters. Story 10. Turkey's economy is in free fall due to runaway inflation. Leadership is now attempting to distract the public by escalating tensions. They are not going to war. They are merely trying to buy time. Story 11. Turkey would be expelled from NATO, and NATO would overwhelm Turkey. There is virtually no chance that America will allow Turkey to attack Israel. Story 12. Erdogan has a significant trade volume with Israel, and his son and other allies are personally involved. He will not go to war with a major trade partner, but he needs to show strength to silence critics and appear anti-Israel. Netanyahu's popularity is also lacking, so they have either tacitly or otherwise agreed to project animosity to appease their critics. It is ridiculous that people are actually paying attention. Story 13. I think World War III is already happening at this point. but the media will never frame it that way in the foreseeable future. Story 14. As a Turkish citizen, this is all talk. There is no way the United States or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization would allow Turkey to approach Israel. They would go to great lengths to protect them, even more than they have for Ukraine. Story 15. It is Erdogan's tactic to divert the attention of the Turkish people, as he has severely damaged the economy. Even if he desires a war, there is no money for that. Furthermore, Erdogan's friends, specifically his son-in-law, are selling goods to Israel, including military equipment. So there is nothing to worry about here. Story 16. The Joint Chiefs of Staff contacted Turkey and stated that if they launched any projectiles into the country, they would have their associates in the Space Force and the National Security Agency disable every weapon system previously sold to them. Story 17. Both supported Azerbaijan in the war against Armenia. Israel and Turkey are close allies. Story 18. Erdogan's threat is merely a statement aimed at gaining support from some Arabs and conservative Turks. The worst action Turkey could take regarding Israel is transferring some of its weapons to Palestinian military organizations. Story 19. Erdogan is in what we call Die Wurstenfall in German. This translates to the sausage trap. It means he is making a fool of himself because his threats are empty. Thus, nobody will take him seriously anymore, if anyone was still taking him seriously after the numerous traps he set up for himself in the past. Story 20. Turkey is facing significant issues. The president is making statements that seem designed to distract the public from the challenges the country is facing. Story 21. The United States cannot afford a war between the two. They also cannot afford to alienate Turkey. If Turkey shuts down the pipelines through their country, Europe will be severely impacted. Story 22. Greece will step in and take Cyprus back and deliver a strong response to the aggression from Turkey. They are eager for a justified reaction to the belligerence that Ankara has shown them. I believe Turkey is in decline due to its current leadership and clear military posturing. Story 23. Absolutely nothing, because Israel is a key ally of the United States, and they will intervene if it is formally attacked. Story 24. Turkey often talks a big game but rarely takes action. Turkey is like the person at the bar who boasts and threatens to fight but vanishes when an actual confrontation occurs. Story 25. They have to use magic carpets because their Air Force and Navy will have a hard time organizing landing operations against the Israeli military. Story 26. The way Israel continues to act and claim readiness for a multi-front conflict, while the United States is stretched thin and international support is dwindling, leads me to believe that Israel may cease to exist within 10 years. Story 27. Some harsh condemnations go unheeded. Perhaps there could be some ineffective economic sanctions before the United States threatens to halt military sales to Turkey. Story 28. I am confused by the entire situation. As far as I know, Turkey does not have a long history of caring about Israel, Lebanon, Palestine, or any of the current issues at play. I am uncertain what benefits Erdogan thinks he will gain from saber rattling. Story 29. There's no way Turkey is foolish enough to go to war with a nation that is heavily armed like Israel. Story 30. They will not do it. They are not insane. They are probably just trying to score a few political points with Iran or something similar. Story 31. Turkey cannot handle the fractured Kurdish groups. What can they achieve against a nuclear power? Story 32. Turkey is a country nearing collapse. It is fortunate to be a member of NATO, but President Erdogan has mismanaged the situation. Inflation in Turkey is extremely high, and Israel possesses nuclear weapons. Does Erdogan want Ankara to be in turmoil amidst all the financial crises? His actions are concerning, and Turkey will be better off when he and the Islamist factions are no longer in power. Story 33. I am not an expert in Middle East geopolitics, but it is quite amazing how the Western media barely reports on Turkey when it is threatening or invading many of its neighboring countries. I am just wondering. Story 34. This feels like a target market survey for writing the next season of this unusual show we are experiencing. Story 35. I will never forget how Turkey treated the United States during the Second Gulf War. They reneged on their promise. They are an enemy just as Iran is and should be treated as such. Their parliament is run by the Muslim Brotherhood. That group should be on the terrorist list. They cheated their way into the European Union. Story 36. Let them attack, and then Greece will attack and claim Constantinople. Armenia, the Kurds, and some angry Slavs join in, and the settler colonist state of Turkey will no longer exist. For real, Turkey is not going to attack Israel. Story 37. Turkey is a large country but facing significant challenges. They have struggled to reconcile their history as a powerful nation during the Ottoman Empire with their current status since World War I. Story 38. You know how the Greek colonels finally lost power because they went to war with Turkey? With some luck, the same will happen here to Erdogan. Story 39. Just a smokescreen by Erdogan to cover his domestic issues, similar to the earthquake fund. Story 40. Turkey seeks attention. Everyone will come to the table, negotiate, and ultimately find a resolution that satisfies all parties. Story 41. NATO will not allow it, but this might convince the United States to distance itself from Israel. I do not see how the American-Israeli alliance benefits the United States. Israel seems nothing more than a source of difficulties. Story 42. It is just posturing. Additionally, Turkey is a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Invading Israel would turn the North Atlantic Treaty Organization against Turkey. Erdogan may be a Muslim supremacist, but even he has his limits. Story 43. Turkey would forfeit its NATO status immediately if it attacked Israel, as the United States would expel it. The opinions of the other NATO countries would not matter when the country that effectively leads the alliance becomes angry. Story 44. It will not happen. There is nothing more to say. He can express his opinion, but a member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization will not attack Israel. Story 45. Nothing. The person made a fortune selling products to Israel but is also gaining favor with Islamists by speaking negatively about Israel. Erdogan is truly remarkable. Story 46. As a Turkish person, we are not in a position for war. We can barely survive with this economy. This will remain only a threat and nothing more. Story 47. Erdogan is just trying to create an illusion so that Turkish citizens believe he is a strong leader. Nothing will change. Story 48. That would be hilarious because Turkey is part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, so Article 5 would require a large majority of the countries that support Israel to engage in fighting or to assist in the fight against them. Story 49. Netanyahu went to war because his approval ratings were abysmal and his country was on the verge of revolt. Turkey could likely follow the same path. Both leaders seek power and may initiate conflicts to maintain it. It is when Turkey is about to revolt that Erdogan will likely start a war. Story 50. First time hearing about this, so I assume Erdogan needs a voter boost. He rattles the saber when he needs some support. Story 51. Turkey's economy is at a low point. They are not likely to engage in any wars anytime soon if they plan to remain relevant economically in the next century. Story 52. They will not be importing Turkish-made firearms to the United States if they decide to do so, but that is insignificant compared to the other sanctions that will be imposed against them. Story 53. Turkey is bluffing. Their economy is faltering, and inflation is skyrocketing. Yes, they may have the second largest military in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but that does not mean they are effective. Just look at Russia's supposedly mighty military before the invasion of Ukraine. Erdogan's harsh words were designed to distract attention from their internal problems. Story 54. Inflation in Turkey is over 70%. The economy is flooded with excessive money, leading to the need for drastic measures to maintain stability. Story 55. Next, a global lightning storm strikes down all idiocy, ridding the world of illogical chaos. Story 56. My friend, I'm Turkish. However, he is trying to regain his right-wing voter base, including support for Erdogan and the Justice and Development Party. The new Welfare Party is splitting votes in key areas for the right, and he is not pleased with the current situation. Story 57. Calm down, everyone. All Erdogan wants is for the stock market to drop tomorrow morning so that he and his associates can buy shares at a lower price. Story 58. We will be providing a couple of billion in funds to Turkey for refugee relief, though most of it will likely disappear into the pockets of Erdogan and his associates, and that will be the situation for another year or so. Story 59. Turkey has many internal issues, so threatening war with Israel is Erdogan's way to divert attention from the collapsing economy and rally the people around a cause they can relate to. Story 60. I would love to see Turkey go to war with Israel just to watch Christians in my country react strongly to the end times. Story 61. Nothing. Turkey is not involved in a war like this. They rattle sabers. They are not interested in actual conflict with Israel. Story 62. They will bump chests several times and take turns saying, "Do you want to go?" And "Come on, let's go." This will continue until a third party intervenes and distracts them or uses inappropriate actions. Story 63. Israel presents a challenge to the Islamic perspective on the world. However, none of them desire a resurgence of the Ottoman Empire. The only way Turkey confronts Israel is by passing through Syria and Lebanon. What is to prevent it from advancing into Egypt? Story 64. Turkey will continue to make noise, but nothing will come of it. Additionally, parts of Lebanon may face severe consequences if they do not find a way to rein in Hezbollah. Story 65. The gunshot in Sarajevo started World War I. The invasion of Poland initiated World War II. We will just have to wait for the conflict that will lead to World War III. Story 66. Turkey, if it were smart, should sit back now and wait for Netanyahu to make the first move, then invoke Article 5. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.